notice that I should have a good deal of fluidity while this goes on. Give me a little bit of squirming motion way down here. Stay on my knees. I can move with them. Not a problem. Now, when we're going to ride, we're going to get off of our knees. When we get off of our knees, what we're going to do is we're going to stay on our toes. We're going to sink our hips down towards the mat. And once we hit this, off our knees, it is commonly believed that you no longer have mobility. I think this comes from the idea that people see this position and they mistakenly believe that the hips are actually laying down on the mat. Actually, there's nothing on the mat yet. All the weight is on the toes, and my sternum pushing through his, and me arching my hips towards him. And I've got the same degree of fluidity, and the nice bonus here is also adding a great deal of pressure to this man on the mat. Where on the pin, my pressure comes from me actually placing some sort of squeeze in it. And the reason the pin originally comes into play, and whether it's the gi or the gi-less strategy in jiu-jitsu, is you could formally grab a hold of the canvas of the gi top or the pants, and this can help you you could actually lean your weight through this canvas and keep someone pinned to the mat. Without the gi, this strategy makes little sense. Staying on your knees makes little sense. Where putting your hips through, as long as you're keeping off the mat, makes more sense. You can almost essentially go arms free. So here I'm going to have him move a little bit, squirm, and I'll show you we can get the same amount of fluidity, perhaps even more, by working in this ride position. Move. We put the same amount of fluidity, but keep him a lot more uncomfortable. Now, Corey, from what you just felt there, would you rather have me on my knees or riding through with my hips down?
I would much rather have you on your knees.
The whole difference is in the way we approach this with the hips down. So again, if we'll take a look at this, if I'm on my knees, I'm not going to do all the proper hand hookups here. There's no way for me to really sink my weight all the way through this man because my weight has got to come through my elbows and my knees. So the main portion of my weight and mass, which is in my hips, is actually still backed up. I'm supporting with my legs, my knees, and my feet, which gives him no weight whatsoever. So to keep him in position, I'm essentially having to squeeze him, relying on my musculature, and at some point that's going to fatigue out. The difference is, again, whenever I go down, the weight's on my toes, my position is so low, it looks like I'm laying on the mat. But you can still slide a piece of notebook paper underneath and find out there's still some space there, because all the weight is crunching through. We'll do this with an ABC test where we can hear how the weight goes through. I'm going to have Corey recite the ABCs out loud, and you can hear the difference as the hips drop down and through. Go ahead and start.
A, B, C, D.
So we can hear that difference just by dropping the hips through, not touching the mat, and squeezing through. So, one of the first differences, just go ahead and sit it for a moment, thank you, is going to be just the conceptual approach was instead of just saying, hey, look, I'm on my knees, this is the only way you can be mobile with it. That's nonsense. You're going to be more mobile, and you're going to be able to apply a lot more pressure by making sure you're maintaining good hips down position. And your idea is to think riding and not pinning. I do not want to just grab a crossbody or even a mounted position and say, hey, I'm going to hang on to this thing and stay here. I want to be able to follow this guy any which way he moves and hopefully negate some of that motion by constantly driving and riding with the hips. And that pressure is going to start taking more wind out of this guy. It's going to make it a lot easier for me to start setting up some of my submissions. So that concept through everything we do in this little grab bag of the comparisons and contrast is got to be, there's a lot more pressure I feel like that's coming through some of the motions. Instead of just being, here's a technique that works on a lot of body squeeze in the technique. Even arm bars are working just the upper body squeezing something together, the knees squeezing together. We're working with the constant hips through, driving pressure like you're going to find in wrestling the entire way. Let's take another look at another difference here, is conceptually. Lots of times in jiu-jitsu, you'll take a look. Whenever saying jiu-jitsu, it can be Brazilian jiu-jitsu, it can be other jiu-jitsu systems, or it could be Sambo for that matter. What you want to analyze whatever techniques are being handed to you and say, well, how many movements does it take to complete this particular submission, this particular counter? And then if you can find something that feasibly works in less moves than the